Interwar Grand Prix racing is something that has a very unique allure to it and has been asked for incessantly since I started posting some Assetto Corsa videos, and especially after I posted my Spirit of Speed overview video. And so I decided to try to figure out a way to do some pre-war Grand Prix racing in Assetto Corsa. And so I think I've come up with something that would be somewhat interesting. I'm here today at the Donington circuit, and this is the 1938 version of the Donington circuit for Assetto Corsa, released a few years ago. I think most folks know about this one, done by Jim Lloyd. Very, very well done. He basically based it off of actual scan data to try to get the circuit as accurate as possible. Obviously, detailed schematics and things don't really exist from this era, so it's a little bit of guesswork, but very convincing, and based off photographs and movies, videos I've seen, does the job quite well. And so I've paired this up, and we'll be driving today the Auto Union Type C from Gary Patterson. I think this car has been covered very, very well, and so I hesitated even to drive it, but it's honestly the best example of a car for Assetto Corsa from this time period, and so I think driving anything else would not do this justice. It goes mentioning that there is a really good Mercedes 125, also raced in this race, done by, I think Gary has a hand in it with Jason Coates as well. It's in beta, not quite finished to the level that the Auto Union is, and so I decided to stick with the Auto Union. So I'm here at the Donington circuit. I'm going to try to simulate the 1937 Donington Grand Prix. This is the first of two pre-war Grand Prix at the Donington circuit, and was a big deal back in 1937. This was the first race where the German teams, the Auto Union and Mercedes teams, came to Great Britain to race against the, I guess you'd say, the locals of the Grand Prix scene. And it was a very spectacular event. It is filmed, it is written about. It's probably the best example of an archived race or races that we have from this era. Duke Video has a great two-part little mini documentary, basically commentary over some video from the time about the race, and I recommend it. I watched it just to get my head in the zone and learn a bit more about this time period. And so this was a very interesting race from the time. The Mercedes and Auto Union teams absolutely obliterated all the British cars. The rest of the grid was made up of ERAs, and I think there was a Maserati or two in there as well. And so these cars, the Mercedes 125, the Auto Union Type C, not only did they look space age compared to the rest of the cars, but they were just leaps and bounds ahead. I've tried to recreate the grid as best as I could in Assetto Corsa, and I mentioned the Auto Union Type C as being a great example, and it's really the only example of a car from this time period for Assetto Corsa. Everything else that's out there and the rest of the grid you're seeing are all based off of an R-Factor 1 mod that came out quite a few years ago, and I'm not sure the quality that it's been converted to Assetto Corsa, but it does do all right to use as traffic and to race again. So I've got a realistic-ish grid. I think a few of the cars aren't quite the right ones to race against, and I've painted a few of the paint schemes, but there's not many photos of the slow guys from these races, so I thought it would do well enough, though, to piece together a little bit of a race here and see if we can get a taste of Grand Prix racing from the 1930s. So buckle up, this one's going to be quite wild. So here we are on the grid. I wish I had a flag that could wave us off, but the lights are lit. Out, we're underway. I'm just trying to get the power down. A lot of wheel spin here. Everybody wagging back and forth as we'll come down to the first corner. Gingerly put it in first. I think I got a car on the inside of me. Slot in behind the number 4. I think that's Richard Seaman. Let's get away here. All the wheel spin as we'll come to the Dunlop Bridge. Put it into second, see if I can calm her down a little bit. And now we'll head through the gate. Very crazy circuit, and now down the hill. Just have to try to get the line right here. Tiptoe. I got an ERA right behind me. A couple cars running wide there. Able to make it up the inside. Into this slow corner. I don't know what Herman Lang was doing, slowing down. But now through a gate, I think I might be in third position. So we'll come into the forest section of the circuit. It's like you're driving down a little country road and into first gear. Hard on the brakes, just try to spot some kind of apex. Getting on the throttle helped turn the car a little bit. And then to the top of the hill. This is one of the more difficult corners and a very bizarre corner at that. So come through in first gear, just roll the car through. And there's a literal house sitting here on the track. Whoa. The Auto Union slowing down quite a bit there, but now we'll get onto the fast back straightaway. And this is where you scare yourself a little bit in these cars. This Mercedes stretching out ahead. Second gear, we'll go up to third here, dip it down the hill, over the bridge. I think it's Bernd Rossemeyer in front of me. He was the real winner of this one. We'll come to the end, the lap. Raymond Mays out of it. We'll come down to the Melbourne hairpin. This is such a hard corner in these cars. Have to go all the way down to second, first gear, and just let the car roll. It feels like you're going so slow, but I swear you can't go much quicker than what I'm doing here. But then we want to get the power down. As we'll head now to the front straightaway. My teammate holding me up a little bit. Puff of smoke from the Mercedes in front. We'll actually come over the top of this hill. Let him get in front of me. On a good lap, you'll get airborne there. They have some amazing shots. So P3 with Rossemeyer in front of me. Boy, he slows down quite a bit for the first turn. Rossemeyer in front of me there. So he was the real winner of this one. And it was a hard battle. So come side by side with him. Oh, come on, don't hit into me. We'll come to the gate. I gotta let him go. It's too sketchy to race side by side. There's not enough room for the both of us. That's for sure. So come then to the bottom of the hill. He did a good job getting through that corner. It's a weird entry. Through the tight right-hander there, and now under the bridge. Would be a great place to stand and watch the race on top of that bridge, as long as the car doesn't run into it. Oh, I'm just getting onto the grass a little bit there. The road is so narrow through here. We'll come in a first gear. I don't know what kind of line I'm taking, but half of the time you drive these cars, you find yourself in weird spots. This race really was a battle. All of the races in 1937, 1938 were battles between Mercedes and Auto Union. There really just weren't other cars out there that did what these cars could do. They abused the rules to a certain extent. The engines weren't limited, and nobody else was making engines like this. It was really the car weight overall. Is Bernd there, a little slower, able to get by him on the straightaway. Almost try to set our sights towards the Mercedes, although a little worried under braking here. The brake just before the hill, down to third gear. Total brain overload with these things. Second gear. Oh, just fully on the brakes, down to first gear. And I think that's Von Braukitz in front of me, as he's very slow on the outside, but then get the throttle down. So we'll head to the front straightaway then to complete the second lap. So doing quite well here. Over the top of the hill, airborne. Brake just at the start-finish line, down to first gear, and come to red gate, first corner. So P2. Just see if I can keep on the power. I think the Mercedes is a lot quicker in a straight line, but around the corners the Auto Union has a little bit better of a chance with the engine behind the driver. It's just so ahead of its time. Much better weight and handling. If handling's a thing, it's crazy driving this to think it's the better handling car, but it really is. Oh, a little bit of oversteer there. We'll come under the bridge. Just gotta be careful not to hit the side of it. It's basically a car and a half wide. Rossemeyer's still behind me then. Come down to first gear, spit a flame. Whoa, almost running into the back of the Mercedes. Car getting a little squirrely under acceleration. Leaving us literally in the dust there. try to just not go too wide here. Somebody built a house on the circuit. A lot of good photographs from there. As now we'll get onto the straightaway. Up to third gear. Just try to get the car pitched right. Easy to run wide there, and you don't want to run wide. There's posts on the side of the circuit. Safety is just not a thing. And during the real race, there actually were a couple incidents. I think two of the Mercedes actually hit each other. Richard Seaman, I think one of them. Crazy though, somehow the cars did not, nobody caught fire, nobody got killed. Whoa, almost stopping on the racing line, but I'm gonna run a little too wide. Try to get back on the power here. So able to make the pass for the lead. Another car retiring. So overall, obviously, the AI and Assetto Corsa are not the best. It took so long as, whoa, here comes the Mercedes up the outside, so maybe fighting back. He heard me say that. Oh, spit of flame, a lot of oversteer. But it's taken so much work even to get them to this point. It's just, they're not programmed to do these types of cars. You have to basically tell them not to touch the throttle, not to touch the brakes, not to steer the car, to have it do anything. They just overcorrect way too much. And it's such a pity because it's almost there. The circuit is beautiful. This auto union is beautiful. If the AI were just a little bit better, this could be, if the AI were better and we had a few more cars of this quality of the auto union, this could be quite a sim itself. We'll come down to first gear then. So running away with it in the auto union. I think in the real race, Mercedes led most of it, or at least up until the halfway mark, where the auto unions were able to take over, I think due to a tire failure on one of the cars. Stream it by the house there and onto the straightaway. Try not to go too fast there. Very easy to run into that fence post, but flat out now, up to fourth gear. I want to brake just where the track dips here. Oh, and Prince Bira finally had enough, retiring. And I haven't quite figured out with the AI and Assetto Corsa, some laps they're able to do quite well, and it seems like the randomness factor is quite high, as you can just see breaking into the hairpin there. Rossemeyer and Van Braukitz there battling with each other. So we'll come over the top of the hill, second gear, over the line. I think just completing 4 laps then. Recommend trying out this auto union with the Donington circuit. Even just hot lapping, it's very difficult and quite fun. So come then past the fence. The force feedback as well for this car is very good. You can feel almost every ridge in the skinny tires. Really teaches you as well how to place that right foot very gingerly. Oh, and just touching both edges of the circuit there. Piloting my aero-engined beast here. Spit of flame from behind. Down to first gear. Nose it into the cottage corner, and then flat out down the back straightaway. Up through third gear, up through fourth, and then braking plenty early Oh, and I can see a car in front. I thought I might catch some of the lapped cars during this race. This is a little, I think it's actually the, is it the Bentley that I put in the race? So there was, I think, one car, O'Reilly, which doesn't exist for any mod, I don't think. It was kind of an obscure car, so I decided to put in the Bugatti. That's what it is. Painted it green to make it look a little more British there. So 3 laps to go, P1, see if I can do what Rossemeyer did. And the amount of fans that turned up for these events is unreal. There's some amazing shots after the race with Rossemeyer taking the win. Just swarms of people. Looks very reminiscent of Indianapolis, honestly. This was the place that you could go see the real racing cars, and the way they talk about it makes it feel like they were from another world. It's interesting to see in the eyes of even just, a century ago, it was not that common, or it felt like a far distance away for somebody from Germany to go to the UK. And today the world has shrunk so much, we're all kind of one global community. But it's neat to think that there was these different societies and they were curious about each other, and you've only heard stories of these silver cars that were dominating Europe, and to see them then in real life must have been something crazy. I mean, these cars look crazy today, and they draw a lot of attention when they race them at like Goodwood and things like this. I cannot imagine. I don't think it's possible to imagine how somebody would have felt seeing these things. Down the straightaway again. This is where we pick up all the speed. Try to keep the car in the rev range. If you could possibly see where the tachometer is, the needle just bobs the whole time, and it's neat to see that modeled in a car. Very, very rarely were gauges in these days any kind of accurate. They were rough approximations of where things were. Into the Melbourne hairpin. Ooh, a little fast this time. Run a little wide, but able to make the corner. Oversteer on the gas. Now we'll come to the hill. See if I can get some good air this time. We'll come to the line. Just 2 laps to go then. A whole host of cars in the pit lane. As would have been the case in these days. Maybe not to the amount of accidents we've seen today, but mechanical failures. Honestly, drivers just getting tired. There's a story of one of the Mercedes drivers from these days winning a race, but basically setting his shoes on fire because the pedals were so hot in the car. These guys were absolute maniacs. Oh, just over the bumps there. We'll come to the bottom of the hill. Down to first. Then gingerly here through the gap, under the bridge. Understeering, oversteering. You get a lot of oversteer on throttle, which is useful. Useful to help you turn, but hard to master for sure. Come into the corner, you're understeer, and then you just start hitting the throttle there. Helps turn the car a bit. Rossemeyer won this race, and it was his last win of his career. He was killed shortly after and never really raced again. And of course, whenever this era is brought up, you can't help but think of just a couple of years later, World War II starting, and what that means for these German cars and what they stood for. It's a very interesting dynamic that I'm very happy to have started learning about and want to learn more about. I think it's possible to enjoy the cars for what they were, but you can't disassociate it completely. So we'll come through the hairpin. Can see another lapped car in front of me. We'll come to the line and start the final lap. And in the report for this race, they talk about how processional it would get later in the race, but in the early laps, these guys were absolutely madmen. There are videos of this, like I said in the intro, where you you can see how hard they're working, smoking the tires just like you're seeing the AI do. It's actually quite funny for how hard it is to get the AI to work at all with this. They do drive the cars in a way that looks somewhat realistic if they're keeping it on the circuit. So we'll work it down the hill here. Whoa, that curb turning me a bit. It's one of the ERAs, I think, in front of me here. The ERA in itself is a fun car to race. It's so much slower than this Auto Union, but having a pack of those is fun. I do wish it was a little better in first party for Assetto Corsa. Let's try to do nothing crazy. I should easily be able to get by him on the straightaway. Tons of oversteer there. This car just wants to go fast. It's hard not to drive it that way. So we'll come through this corner, see if I can get it up the outside here. Just lay the power down and we'll see you later. Up through fourth gear. So we'll come make sure I brake plenty early for the hairpin on the last lap. Locking it up a little bit, but just need to try to get the car slowed down. So come behind another lap car, but he won't be too much of an issue here. Through the final corner then, and now all I gotta do is get up the hill. So repeating what Rossemeyer did here, but just 8 laps, try doing 80 of these things. Over the hill, got some good air there and across the line. So, racing 1930s Grand Prix cars in Assetto Corsa, very tricky, and it's so hard to get the AI to do anything fun. I was at least able to have a battle with them for a few laps here, but overall, a ton of fun experience just to drive the Auto Union, and I can't recommend it enough for those of you interested in this era at all. It's the best example we've ever had in any game of a 1930s Grand Prix car. I want to do more of this. I want to see if I can get them working a little bit better, maybe take them to some other circuits. I think it could be a lot of fun to try out more of the cars, maybe. But I think the Auto Union's the one that does it best. So go grab Gary's creation, go grab the Donington circuit, do some laps. I'm sure you can go a lot faster than I did overall, but fun to recreate history at least a little bit with the Auto Union here. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.